should have made tea. That's okay. The last few months have been a little bit crazy, and a lot of things have happened, so I figured we would do a little life updates and a little bit of a Q&A. If you've been around for a while, you might have known that my husband and I were building a house. This process started pre-pandemic, and it has been quite a long process. The first date that we got from our builder was June 2023, and then October rolls around, and I had committed to doing a intensive in Bali. So I was helping coach a strength training camp. So I had said yes to that when I had thought that we would be moved in June. And we were still not moved in come October. So when October got closer, we were like, okay, we're now, the bank's putting pressure on us and things like that. So there were a lot of factors that increased stress, I guess, around that time. But basically, we had thought we were going to move in before we left for Bali at the beginning of October. And so I had given notice to my apartment complex. They were like jacking up rent, and we were like, we're going to be out finally. And we were not. So we were packing up the apartment, moving out with no place to go, and trying to pack for my first international trip at the same time. We flew out the day after we moved out. My dad ended up coming down and helping us the weekend before, and then we finished up moving out, packing, and then we crashed at a friend's house when we left. The training camp was 10 days in total, and then we were going to spend a couple extra days exploring. I was also going to be creating content, and then we were going to come back. I want to say we came back on the 23rd of October from Bali, and we still did not have a place to stay. At that point, we kind of were under the impression that we would hopefully be moved in on the 31st. So luckily, we have a great support system, and we were able to crash at a friend's house, which I truly appreciate, but at the same time, it's very hard not to have your own space. And so this impacted training because I didn't have my own gym anymore. I didn't have a gym membership. It impacted my nutrition because I didn't want to overtake her fridge with food. And so I wasn't really able to meal prep and things like that. So it definitely impacted not only from a life stress standpoint of not having a place to stay, it also impacted, day-to-day life and things like that. But overall, we are very grateful that we have the support system that we do, and that the situation wasn't worse than it actually was. But basically, on the 31st, we weren't able to move in. On the 1st, they were like, okay, we put in for the certificate of occupancy. So I'm sitting here going over because we didn't use a professional cleaning crew after the contractors just because it was freaking expensive. We got that quote and we were like, yeah, no, we're not doing that. So the living area was just a complete mess, sawdust everywhere. So I'm sitting here on the 1st, trying to clean up so at least we can, have a place to stay. I'm realizing that locks are not installed, so they're just holes in doors. And so I installed, a couple locks just so we could lock the door the first night that we were there, if we were able to even get in that day. So, cars drive by and I'm like, oh, they're here. No, they never came that day. So I then had to go back to our friend's place and stay there again after I packed up the car and everything. And so it was very disappointing. So I went into work the next day, I packed up the car, couldn't really see out of the rearview mirror. And as the day goes on, I don't hear anything. And I'm just like, this isn't happening again. And finally around 3 or 4 p.m., my mom actually texted my husband and I saying, what's the update? When I had texted my husband earlier that day and there is no update. So we got a text back, both me and my mom in a group text with a picture of my husband's suitcase in our bedroom. And that's when I knew we were no longer homeless, and wow, I don't know, I am getting emotional about this. Whew. Okay, so we were just very relieved at that point. So I go home after work for the first time, actually coming home. And I realized I didn't finish, this door. So I put in a doorknob. We don't have a working fridge at this point. We don't have a working stovetop. My husband had set up the bed. So I had just picked up stuff downstairs, finished a couple locks. And then I go upstairs and I'm like, I'm ready to go to bed. And I don't think we had hot water either. No, we did, because they had a small temporary tank. But anyway, I go upstairs and we have a porch, and there was a hole in the door, and I was like, yeah, this isn't happening. So I just ended up stuffing it, and I was like, we're just going to bed. But overall, it's been very, very nice to be able to turn on lights when the other person's still sleeping, because we weren't able to do that before. Weights don't roll around on you because the floor is actually flat, which was not the case in my last apartment. Having your own space is just a game changer. I don't know if it's just me, I think it might just be me, but when I'm in an apartment, I don't feel like it's my own space, and I feel like I'm always on edge and always gonna get in trouble for something. So it's very nice to just have your own space. We actually have an oven that works and doesn't take an hour plus to preheat, which has been fantastic. The food is so much better. I could go on with all these things that I'm very, very happy about. So we are very happy to be finally moved in and just like have basics. But we do still have a ton of work to do. Like, we still don't have a working stovetop. We finally have an actual gas tank, so that's good. We don't have the lights in our kitchen fully set up yet. We don't have the shower walls done. So we're making do with a fair amount right now, but boy, does it feel good to have your own space. We've been running around trying to get stuff done. Like, this weekend we're gonna do the closet systems. We got like a couple professionally done, but then now we're just gonna do the rest ourselves. But there's just a ton of different projects, so we'll definitely be a little bit busy. But let me tell you, if you ever move into a house, doing it kind of around Black Friday sales is an absolute game changer, because we've gotten so many things. Like, we hadn't planned on getting a couch, but because it was such a good deal, we were like, let's go ahead and grab a couch and things like that. So we were able to save a fair amount of money using those sales too. So that was nice. But anyways, let's jump into your questions about the Bali trip and just like general life. So one of you guys asked, what is the goal of your trip and did you achieve your expectations? So my expectations for the trip were probably pretty low because I had never been out of the country and I had no idea what to expect. My goal of the trip was really mainly the Nirvana Strength training camp. It was a phenomenal experience, like meeting the other coaches, meeting the participants for the camp. That was just a phenomenal experience. Met so many amazing people and had a lot of fun, to be honest. So I guess, yes, I achieved the expectations for the trip, because that was really like the main purpose of me going. Someone asked if we did surf, and we did surf, although the waves were not great that day, which was partly good, partly bad, because like good because I have never surfed before, and my husband had only surfed like once or twice, and it had been years. But then partly bad because it was so tame that we didn't really have that many waves. So I definitely want to go again because it was a lot of fun, and holy moly, it was a lot more tiring than I thought. I got quite a few guys asking when or where is the next international trip, and that is a great question because I don't actually know. Basically, we've put our life on hold quite a bit because of the house, and so we haven't been able to see friends and family because we're like, we need to be in town to do something for the house probably. So we couldn't commit to actually seeing people. So we have a lot of that to catch up on, and then also financially, we've put a lot of money into this house, so we need to kind of recoup and save a little bit more. So that's kind of the situation for, international travel. I definitely got the travel bug. It was so much fun, but I also realized that I do have to be an adult and be a little bit responsible. So if I do get invited to another camp, or if it's probably going to be a work trip, it's going to be the next international trip. So I was asked any tips with dealing with jet lag. So this was, again, first international trip. It was a 25-hour flight, and it was a 12-hour time difference. So it was quite aggressive, to say the very least. So go big or go home, right? But actually, I did a lot better with jet lag than I thought I was going to. The way back was definitely harder. The way there, basically I just took Legion's lunar supplement, which has some like melatonin in it, on the flight, and I kind of strategically made it so like I would be kind of wanting to get up when we got there. And then I just took melatonin for the first couple of nights, and then it was fine. There was one night I forgot to because I thought I was tired enough, and that was a mistake. But if I took the melatonin, I was fine. On the way back, it was definitely a little bit more tricky just because we didn't have our own space. It was a very small room that we were in. It was it's probably a me problem, to be honest, and I didn't prioritize having melatonin. So that was a lot more rough as well. Just from an overall life standpoint, I think that was more the issue than the jet lag. So it took me probably about a week to kind of get back onto things. But I would definitely say overall, sleep on the plane, and I kind of did like 2 sleeps almost on the way there. So it was like 2 shorter sleeps, and then take the melatonin was really my go-to thing, is probably what I would say. And the last question related to the Bali trip was, when's the next camp? And that is a good question. So I loved the in-person stuff so much that Lucy and I have decided to do a kind of short weekend camp here in Atlanta. So if you do want to join us, I will go ahead and link the information below if you are watching that in time to grab some tickets. But I'm very excited about that. So life questions now. How did you deal with all the stress that comes along with this? Like the homelessness, the house build, the travel, the unknown. We'll start there. All right. So that's a great question, and I have no idea how I did. I mean, you do what you can with what you have at that moment in time, and you do your best with it. You can't control everything, and so you control what you can control and move on from there. You just roll with the punches, I guess. So same thing with, anything in life. The homelessness was definitely stressful, because it wasn't your own space, and I kind of already talked about that earlier. So that was definitely challenging. The unknown was definitely a stressor, especially there were a lot of financial unknowns because of some pressure from the bank and some potential things that could have happened that, thank goodness, did not actually happen. But it was probably more financial stress that stressed me out the most. But again, you can't control those things, so you just kept on going and hoped for the best. And we kind of already had made the bed and we had to sleep in it, basically. And then the other part of that question was, what do you do for mental fitness that keeps yourself motivated, especially when things aren't going as you'd like? I kind of talked about the strategies, I guess, like the, doing what you can with what you have at that moment in time. I've gone through, I guess, a fair amount of stuff in my life, whether with it mental health. I've had strategies that have allowed me to handle a higher amount of stress potentially. Maybe it's the fact that I always feel like I need to prove myself because I never feel like I'm doing enough. So that's probably to a fault of mine. So I'm just continuously focusing on the task in front of me, and you keep working at it, basically. So this question, I think it came actually from my cousin. Will you get a pet when you settle into your new place? My husband and I have said 5 years since when we first talked about potentially getting a dog. So it's still at 5 years. We'll see what actually happens. We really just want to have space that the dog can run around, and which is now something that we have. We want to have time for it. And both my husband and I are a little bit of workaholics, so that does play a role. So I do want work stuff to settle down a little bit more, so we do have enough time to allow the dog to have a good home. And then the last question is kind of, what about the house build made it take so long? So obviously the pandemic played a role, supply chain, labor. We went with a builder that told us up front that, hey, I'm not going to make the house the fastest, but it's going to be a better quality home. So we thought it was going to take an extra couple of months, but it actually took an extra couple of years. So that was partly what happened. He had his specific contractors that he wanted to use because he knew that they did quality work, and so he was waiting on them. So it was clearing and grading took 3 to 6 months. Window delay, because the shortage took an extra 6+ months for the windows to come in. It took 3 to 6 months for framing. We had some delays because of the bank. It was just a delay after a delay, and it was a lot of waiting. So it was definitely frustrating, and it kind of is what it is. So yeah, there were just a lot of different things that made it go longer. But those are all the questions that I have for you today. If you did like this style video, let me know in the comments below, and I might do some more life updates and Q&As if you guys liked it.